what I did not expect, and this is something that is new to me, that's what I had to dig real deep in order to find out why this happened. That's where my standard shopping campaign that couldn't spend the full budget started spending 40% more. This was untouched. This has a 77% increase in total because we added 5K and then standard shopping spent 5K. So we added 5K from each. This was unintended because I believe the massive reach that and impressions that PMax can find, it couldn't target them. And that's why standard shopping could.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're using PMax as your TCPA or TROAS campaign, and you're shopping as your feeder campaign. Larger budget on the feeder on the first step, and then less budget on the second, but you sort of reconfigured that, rejiggered it a bit.
Exactly. So the standard shopping campaign here is the feeder strategy. Now, what's interesting is this is actually opposite of the feeder strategy. The feeder strategy in search has your TCPA at a higher ad spend than your sacrificial campaign, which is your max clicks with exact match. This is a turn the other way around. Reason being is because PMax has the added bonus of being able to remarket omni-channel.
Sure.
And when that campaign is too high of ad spend, it will target everybody it wants to, including people that it is in people that are outside of what you're able to feed it. So it's hungrier than the standard shopping campaign can deliver the volume of people.
Got it. Makes sense.
So now the standard shopping campaign that has been running actually for over 2 years in this account, this is the same campaign, was not able to reach daily ad spend. It was missing it by about 40%.
Okay.
And I only had 100% TROAS goal added to it. So I used a fairly low TROAS. And the PMax campaign, I set it at 200% ad spend. And I said, all right, let's do 200% and see if we can have this campaign remarket the good traffic coming from standard shopping, and then also find some easy, fast, and cheap kills that standard shopping may not have the budget for or may not be able to go after. So I get kind of a feeder strategy along with a dual-prong approach. The feeder strategy is the standard shopping feeding into a tag, which is then remarketed by PMax. The dual-prong approach is everybody that PMax is able to identify and bid on that's outside of my feed's capability for keyword match is actually going to be given back to standard shopping because I have lower targets on standard shopping. Standard shopping can go after what PMax cannot. So they actually feed each other.
Okay.
PMax says, hey, I found Ralph. Ralph wants to buy it, but Ralph's not a 200% or a better ROAS. You take it. You have the ability. You have the better ad rank in order to go after that person.
Okay.
Now, standard shopping says, yeah, but if I get that first click and then they have a high amount of chance of conversion, you take it. So they can feed off of each other because they have two different targets. One just has the added susceptibility for doing remarketing. So that one deserves a higher TROAS because I want them to be a first click expensive, second click cheap.
Got it.
The results are fairly similar though. So in this last 8 days, we've been able to increase our ad spend 77%. So it went from 14,000 up to 25. Now that was because PMax feeder strategy spent $5,000. But what I did not expect, and this is something that is new to me, that's what I had to dig real deep in order to find out why this happened. But that's where my standard shopping campaign that couldn't spend the full budget started spending 40% more. This was untouched.
Okay.
And I can prove this with screenshots. I just can't do it right now because I can't show anything layer deeper in this account than that. But this has a 77% increase in total because we added 5K and then standard shopping spent 5K. So we added 5K from each. This was unintended. This just ended up happening because I believe the massive reach that and impressions that PMax can find, it couldn't target them. And that's why standard shopping could. The impressions are massive in Performance Max. We already know that. So when we look at the impressions, because it does a lot of remarketing, but there's half as much impressions also on the search network, though, too, in shopping. There's half the amount of impressions, but it's asinine to think that it went through 728,000 people. Said, there's no one I can't go after. Of course, the tag knows these people. And so that's what's interesting is that is given the standard shopping capability of spending more. So then we look at the conversion value. The conversion value is up 97% in app. Now, what is good is I've already gone through and I can prove it behind the scenes. Again, we'll probably do it like in a different video so I can prove it. I don't like showing in-app ROAS because it doesn't actually make sense, but it does give me ability to say, okay, is this also going to match up to top line? And it is. And that's something that I do have screenshots for that I could share. But the PMAX feeder strategy, the PMAX feeder strategy added in, allow both of these to spend more. And then this one actually also started to attribute more. Now, it did reduce ROAS. It did go from an in-app ROAS of 91 down to 74. And then this one just shot off right immediately at 200. So my global change of in-app ROAS went up 10%. Okay. Again, these are not right. They're not 100% correct, but they're trending in the right direction is what I need to see first. Again,
it's an indicator. Exactly. That you're on the right path.
Exactly. ROAS sucks because it's not the be all, but it is important to measure.
It's important to look at.
Exactly. If this thing just tanked down, I'd be like, oh no. And I go look at the back end and probably see it tank down. It's increasing. I look at the back end and it's also increasing. And so we see the conversion value is higher than this cost, which obviously means that we have a higher amount of ROAS. Now, one of the reasons as to which is, why? Well, we have 6,300 clicks compared to 8,600 clicks. So 1/4, because it went from like 1/5 to 1/3. So basically 1/4 of the ad spend has been spent inside of PMAX feeder strategy. But I've generated about 80% of the clicks. So the CPC is very low, which actually does make a lot of sense. Now, when the CPC came out, this thing went from $1.98 to $2.28, and this one went down, or this one started off at 83 cents because it is doing also remarketing. So that's okay.
Of course.
Now, the crazy part is all of the inbound search that I see through Insights Performance Max they're all non-brand. They're 100% non-brand. I did do two things though, and I did this on purpose. And if you are going to do this, I would highly suggest you all doing this as well. I did use a bid for new customers only because this account spends about, I think, $1 million a week on Meta. So that $1 million a week is going to be obviously a lot of traffic and that kind of stuff. Now, this is only a singular product, so we're okay there. But I didn't want this PMAX to jump in and say, look at all of these people that I get to go after who are existing customers. So I wanted that added layer of security that I uploaded a recent customer list and then turned on bid for only new customers. So that's in the Performance Max campaign. Mm-hmm. That's like one of the big caveats that I did here. So that's just something that I would say, if you're going to try this, if you do have omni-channel, if you do have a lot of good brand awareness, and if you do have good returning customers, make sure that you enable that. It may not do anything, or it may help. It's showing that it actually is helping pretty much. Got it. Now we're using a third-party attribution tool, which shall not be named. Interestingly enough, inside of that, it shows that my Performance Max and my standard shopping are both 68% cold. They're identical. They're 68.4, 68.7, but they're both 68% cold. So the third-party attribution is saying, hey, these are actually both going after colder audiences. Good. That's kind of what I want. I want this campaign to go after as many cold people I want as possible, but because it's using a TROAS, it needs some blend of warm in order to predict the future of who's going to convert. Same thing with PMAX, but they're at different levels. Now, there's a couple things that maybe if you're really good at Google Ads, you kind of noticed in this demonstration, and you may have some questions. And same thing that I did, and I'll kind of go right off the bat. First thing I asked myself is, why did my standard shopping campaign ROAS dip? Why did this go from 91 down to 74? Well, yes, one of the things that's going to happen is this is going to spend more, which usually causes a ROAS dip. Right. But I think the bigger thing that we're seeing here is this 91.28% ROAS used to be a blend of people that were producing ROAS at 50 and 200. All we did was we just scraped off the 200, gave it over there, and that's the delta of what the other average high side was. So now we have more of the average low side. Exactly.
Yeah. You're slicing the pie in a different way now.
Exactly. It's like take half of your good and move it over there. What are you left with? The average and the bad. Okay, so you tick left, and all the good goes over to the right. But the volume increase is massive. I went from not being able to spend the full daily budget to then being able to get much closer to spending the full daily budget, and then tacking on an additional $5K there.